Hi, this is James from Tabletop Gaming Guild, and today we're going to talk about a game that I've wanted to play for an incredibly long amount of time. I like heavy Euro-style games, and this is definitely one of them. This is Feudum. It's going to be designed by Mark Swanson, and it's going to be published by Oddbird Games. This is a massive game that allows you to have multiple different ways to score in a medieval-style setting. So I'm going to attempt to just give you a general idea of how the game functions, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to give you my final thoughts. Alright, so this is Feudum. Blimey, you and your blokes have been unfairly banished and stripped of everything but a few shillings and table scraps. Undaunted, you journey to a strange land to reclaim your honor. Under the steely gaze of Her Majesty Queen Anne, you must chart your path to fame and glory. Will you farm the earth, fight as knights, or finagle your own feudums? Whatever your fate, one thing is clear: medieval life is not a bowl full of cherry tarts. Fertile land is scarce, food is dwindling, and fanciful creatures fancy you for dinner. Lucky, not everything in feudal is feudal. If you seize control of your local guilds, you can become the most venerated in the kingdom. All right, so this is the board, and this is set up for the max player count here. And you'll notice that there's going to be 6 guilds here, 3 on each side. And you're going to have this large map here where you're going to be able to move about and increase your reputation and get those veneration points so you can win the game. Now, there are going to be different routes that you can take in this game, and some of them are blocked to you and require vessels, like flying routes, underwater routes with the bubbles, or ferry routes. Now, throughout the game, you can take these normal routes here, these normal roads, and later on, if there is no ships here in the Invention Guild to purchase, you can also take ferry routes. But ferry routes will cost you coin to cut across the country with. So the objective of Feudum is to be the most venerated in all the land. Less loftily put, players try to score the most veneration points, which are going to be shown with this icon here. I'll show you on some of these cards. You can score some veneration points on some of these cards here. They have this little icon up here. That's veneration points. And you're going to go along this score track, and the person with the most veneration points at the end of the game will win. Well, how does the game end? Well, you're going to go over 5 different epochs, and at the end of the 5th epoch, the game will end, and you'll do your final scoring. One thing to mention, I'm not really going to show you all the rules of this game, or even the majority of them. This is a fairly complex game, but I will say that the game itself, once you've played a couple rounds of it and you've gone through these different merchant guilds here and you've done the push and the pull action, you're going to really catch on very quick to this game. It is a 2-game play that you're going to probably do for this game. One game is going to be a learning game and just having fun. The second game will be competitive, since everyone really knows how to play. Not that the first game can't be competitive, but there's a big difference when you start out knowing what you need to do. So during the game, you will secure membership status in the different guilds by putting your pawns and or feudums into play. You will also race to rule locations, as this reinforces your guild status and unlock additional actions. Latecomers must settle for serfdom, but this can be advantageous. So serfdom, you can tend farms, you can do all sorts of cool stuff with serfdom. Players who hurry to improve locations in each region are rewarded immediate victory points, veneration points, sorry, not victory points, and valuable region tiles. So these are going to be the region tiles, and these are going to be, I want to show you in a little bit how they different epochs get triggered. If you're very ambitious, you might actually upgrade one of these land spots to a feudum, which will give you a lot of brownie points in a guild and pretty much keep your guild master position with that. You can still lose it from different ownership of land points and stuff, but it's pretty hard. So creating a feudum is a great way to ensure that you're going to be the guild master. And I'll tell you what that means in a second. However, that comes with a cost. You have to be able to attack other players, which you will be able to. You'll need to attack other players, or you're going to lose points at the different epochs here. So, and these are cumulative. So if the first set here, you're going to lose 3 points. Second set's going to be 4 points plus 3 points if you didn't finish one, so 7. And last one's going to be 5 points plus 4 points plus 3 points, or whatever you have covered up. Now, one of the things that's important to mention in this game, I think is very important when you're teaching the game, is you don't have to have a feudum to put your tile here, or your little influence, or your little piece here to when you do a battle. Anytime you do a battle, you win it, you can place one there, whether you have a feudum or not, and you can actually do that in anticipation of getting a feudum, so that you don't have to worry about it so much. All players will need to trade with the guilds to get resources as needed. However, only guild members may move goods from guild to guild in return for immediate victory points, which are going to be a lot of points in the game. You may decide to thwart the flow of goods, but be warned, a player could throw you a feast and perform the guild powers while you are incapacitated. So people can take advantage of your guild master status and take the action as if they were a guild master, which is pretty powerful in this game. When one of the region's tiles stacks is empty, the game finally ends. So you're going to be taking from these stacks, and it's going to be uneven. These are actually related to different land regions on the map. And that land region is going to determine which tile you're going to take. Also, you're going to roll this die, which we'll get into a second, to take one off, potentially. So you're going to go down to that 5th spot, and you're going to end the game, but it's not going to be necessarily, it's probably definitely not going to be the 5th round that the game ends at, which it could. The path to victory are many. Will you rule locations or humbly tend landscapes? Be dutiful vassals or avoid royal obligations? Fortify your feudums, or expand your kingdoms. Rest assured, your foresight and finesse will prove fruitful unless you are unwillingly bludgeoned by a lumbering behemoth. Long live the king. So what do you do round by round in this game? Well, you're going to take actions. The first thing you're going to do on the beginning of the round is everyone's going to look through their hand of cards here, and these are all the same. And they're going to pick 4 of them, and those 4 are going to be their actions for the round. Then players are going to take turns playing those action cards until they run out. After that, you're going to need to nourish your pawns. So all your pawns are actually these dice. So you're going to need to feed these dice. And you can use a food to feed them. Or if you get a sulfur, and when you get a sulfur, you can pick whether you're going to put it on your area here or you're going to put it in your wine barrel. You could put a sulfur on one of the pawns here to feed the pawn. Now the sulfur on the pawn will reduce its attack and defense down to 0. So instead of an attack 1 and defense 2, it's going to be a 0-0. So that is a very good thing to keep in mind when you're feeding your people. The food is generally, if you have it, the best thing to do. And you start out with 7 food, so you have a good bit of food to get you moving along in the game. Then you're going to roll the progress die. So I'm going to roll the progress die here, and whatever type it lands on here, so this is going to be the islands, I'm going to take from there as long as I'm able to. If not, I'll re-roll until I can. You can't take a tile that is greater than the epoch that you're currently in. So I'm in the first epoch, I can take away this epoch tile. If a epoch gets triggered, which you're going to look at this chart to see how they get triggered here, you're going to go into the next epoch. So these are going to say how many of the tiles, so the second age tile, you need to have 4 of the second age ones exposed, and then you can move on to the new epoch, and you're going to perform your scoring for that epoch. If you end up to get to all the way to the bottom and you get to the 5th one on this chart here, you're just going to go into your end round or end game and final scoring. So you're going to go end game and final scoring if you get to the 5th one. So There are a lot of different actions to pick from. You're going to have 11 different actions here that you can pick from in the game. And they all have various different things you can do. Like you can do a harvest action here, where you can take some of your resources that you got at your different farmlands. You can trade them into the Farmers Guild at a 2-to-1 rate. You can also do kickbacks for this and all sorts of fun stuff. So that's harvest. You can improve your areas you control, and you have to have an influence pawn on there. And you'll notice that you only have 6 influence pawn to start the game here. So you're going to need to get more as time goes by, and there's different spots that can get it, but most of them you're going to get from the Knights Guild over there, and they all have their different purposes. But you can upgrade these lands, and each of these lands can go to have different benefits for you. So you can also go upgrade to a Feudum, and if you upgrade to a Feudum, beware that you also have to start attacking players, or you're going to be losing lots of points. This one here is going to be the one that lets you conquer other players. So if you have a pawn in that location, which again the pawn's a die, you can attack the location. Now there's going to be a chart in the book that's going to show you the powers, but in general a die is going to be worth 1 attack, 2 defense. So if a person has another pawn in there and you're attacking that pawn, they're going to have 2 defense. You're going to have to exceed their value. So you're going to need other stuff to do that, and you can use monsters that you can get throughout the game there to help out. They're 1 power. They don't need fed or anything, and if you do succeed, then you can put your marker here on the catapult track there and prevent from losing points when you have a Feudum. You also, I will mention on these cards here, if you're playing with the advanced mode, and this is going to be or, but most of them, like this one here, you can do both. If you have a pawn out that matches that, you can do that bonus action on these cards. Here's going to be a migrate where you can put them on the board here. And this one here is going to always cost you a food to place out another token on the board here, and they generally have to start in the area that you control or in the starting region, unless you use this advanced action on the bottom. We'll go over guild actions in a second, but here you can explore, and you can basically also get cards in the game here that are going to be like end game scoring, which are really good for you. And you can only have up to the 3 of the king's rights, and some of them give you end game scoring, and some of them will give you advantages that you can use throughout the game. I'll show you some of these here. Influence is really good card. Here, this one, you can, wherever you have your pawn, you can put an influence token on it. And there's going to be many more. I'm not really going to go over there. This one's a really important one. It's a double one, so you can double up your other cards. So this one here shows you can't double. This one shows you can double. However, if you pay a saltpeter, you can double a card that doesn't have the double symbol on it, like this, but it can't have the X on it. Also to mention, some of these cards you can only play, like this one here can't be the last card you play. It also can't be doubled. So there's going to be a lot of different decisions you're going to have in these action cards that you're going to pick each round. I didn't really go over all of them, just giving you a brief idea what they do. But a lot of the stuff is going to have to do with the guilds here. And when you do these guilds, and most often throughout the entire game, the guild card is the #1 card you're probably going to pick by default, because it's so multi-purpose. Like you can trade with the guilds, which is really, really important. You can pull to the guilds, you can push to the guilds. Now it depends on your position in the guild whether you can do these either two. You have to be the guild master to push, and you have to be the journeyman to pull. If you're not either of them, you're just going to be doing the trade action. However, you have this really cool bonus action that you can do on the bottom. So that is probably going to be the main card that you're going to use in the game. Pushing and pulling is basically on each of these different guilds. You're going to be pulling resources in or pushing resources out, and you're going to gain veneration points based on how well you do that. And that is a big deal in the game. For guilds themselves, you're going to have 3 spots on the guilds. Unless you're going down to a 3-player game, then there's only 2 spots. The farthest spot is going to be the guild master. When you place a pawn out on the board, whatever symbol that you put out, you're going to put your pawn in that guild, and you're going to check. Now, each of these is going to have a little, let's see if I can show you here. They're going to have symbols on them, and that's going to show you how you're going to be able to determine, like if we were looking at the Farmers Guild here, you're going to see that you have to have a pawn or a feudum to be able to have any status in the guild. Later on, if you have status in the guild, every farm that you have is going to reinforce your status by 1. Anytime you lose or gain these throughout the game, you're going to lose or gain potentially status in a guild. If you have the highest, you're going to be on the highest rank, and so on and so forth. If you jump onto here and you have the same as the highest, you will go into lower rank. You have to exceed to move forward. Now, at the end of every epoch, you're going to score these veneration points based on your point in the guild, and most of the guilds will give you all the guilds will give you rewards for your position when other people use it for different things. So that's also very, very important. But that's really quick in a nutshell how these are going to work. And each of these places are going to show you what happens when you trade, what happens when you push, and what happens when you pull. Just know that guilds are incredibly important in this game. They're incredibly, a lot of points that come from controlling those different guilds, and a lot of points from strategically pushing and pulling when you're either the guild master or journeyman. Very, very important. Also, going to grab those cards here to show you. In order to finish some of the king's rights at the end of the game, or any of the king's writs, you have to have royal seals, and you're going to be using royal seals for multiple different things in the game. All right, so here's an example. This is going to be one that you're going to have to be able to control these different locations in here, and these are going to be the amount of points here based on this geographic locations, however many you control. You either get 3, 5, 7, or 9 points at the end of the game, so you have 1, 2, 3, or 4 of them. And you also have to have a king's seal in here at the end, in your area by the end of the game, to be able to claim this. And there's also cards like this that already have the king's seal, and these are going to basically give you bonuses. This one's going to be an attack bonus one. Here you're going to get attack bonus of 1, or you can spend this good here to get an attack bonus of 2. So those are those cards that you get throughout the game, and there's multiple different ways of getting them, but they're very important. Also, in the guild here, the Monks Guild, you're going to be getting these beads here. And these beads here are going to help you out a lot with farming. So if you do farming action, so let's go into a little tutorial here real quick. So whenever you place your influence marker in an area, if you're the first one there, you're just going to control it. If you're the second one in their area, you're going to be a serf. If you can also, if you control it, place another one, and that is going to be your support. So this basically will help you control that location. But there can't be any more than 3 pawns in an area, or 3 of these influence markers, and there can't be more than 2 colors. There can be any number of pawns in that area, but there can only be those. So this is going to be your serf, this is a supporter, and this is the ruler. Now, the other way around is if green put another one here, they would usurp me, and they would now roll it, and now I would be the serf, and that would be the supporter. That's basically how that area control area works for each of these locations. Of course, you can also attack these locations, and you can take them out. And there's a card in here that will allow you to, when you come in here, you can immediately swap it out if you have that pawn there, and you can actually control it. So you have to be aware of those things in the game. But that's basically how you're going to control the different areas. And when you control these different areas, like here, I'm part of the Farmers Guild. This is a farm, so that will help reinforce my guild master level of that guild. So that's another thing to keep in mind. But yeah, not to get too far into the weeds here, there's a lot to this game. There's a lot of different things, but in general, you're going to be moving your pawns down in this different area. The face that you pick for these pawns really does matter, as it affects your influence in different guilds. Being guild master, journeyman, or the apprentice will help gain points every epoch, which is incredibly important. They also give you resources when people use the different locations. You're going to be using these action cards as each round to do these different objectives. One thing to mention too is when I said the movement of the ships, you can only purchase ships from here. There's a chart showing how much the ships cost. When you purchase ship, you keep it in your area. When you use it, you're going to, like this one, submarine here, can only be used in the bubble areas. When you use it, you're going to put your pawn on it. So let's say I have my pawn on it. When I use it, I can use it to move all the way over here, let's say. I jump off, and I keep moving, that ship is now available for anyone else. But I can purchase more ships and stuff. Once this area here is clear, then those channels become available. But if people build new ships, that I'll cover over here, and then those channels won't be available. The channels always cost 2 silverling to use. But yeah, so in a really quick nutshell, that's what's going on in Feudum. It is really a lot of different ways you can score in the game. One of the things I didn't mention is if you improve one of these locations, so use the improvement action to improve one of these locations, if there's a tile available that is the same or less than the current epoch, you'll be able to get that tile. If you're going to go for the one that matches your region, if that's available, you gain it. You can use these as wilds for any type of resource, but you can also place these down if you're a serf in a certain location to gain these bonuses, and all of them have different things going on for them. So you're basically farming your land or whatnot and get those. If you don't have any of that current epoch in the land type that you selected, you can grab it from a different one, but you won't get the points that you would have normally for getting one from the current region that you're at. But there's a lot of different ways to score points. There's a lot of different things to consider. Some more cool stuff, like you can use these, the sulfur, the saltpeter, to draw an extra card before, or have 5 cards, or play two cards on one turn, and you'll have to select those, whichever one you want to do, and put it in your little bag, and then it goes back to the house sack here. But you can't do both. So you can hold on to these to do your bonus stuff at the start. There's a lot of, like you see, there's a lot of little really cool things. And there's a lot of rules for the game itself. But like I said, they're pretty intuitive. And once you get through the first game there, everyone's going to be pretty much an expert on the game. So let's go ahead back up to the table here, and I'll give you my final thoughts on Feudum. All right, so Feudum. Get into component quality first. Component quality is great for this game. I especially love those little monster miniatures. Those are really, really cool. Overall, just great design, great component quality. My only little quibbles is if you go back and watch a couple things where I'm going over the video, it's actually really hard to see the starting locations because there's a little pink ring around it you can't see, and the tile itself covers that pink ring. So it's hard to tell where the starting locations are. I really wish they would have made that pink ring larger than the disc that you're putting it on. Also, the difference between the bubbles and the little ship path right there is very hard to see on there. A lot of the font is very small for like the north and south. I didn't say about this, but you're actually placing resources out in some of the epochs and either doing the north or south. And one of the really weird things is one of the channels there, the south mark is right on the shillings mark, which is very confusing. So it seems like they went to make this game incredibly beautiful, which it is very beautiful and really nice looking, over the functionality of being able to instantaneously recognize things on the board. So a little bit of a downside on that. Also, this is a very heavy game. There's a lot to it. Now, I will say that it's very intuitive as you go and you learn one thing, it sort of makes sense to the next, and they're all sort of interrelated, which makes sense, but it's a lot. There's a lot of different things in this game, and there's a lot of different things you can do, and a lot of different, I didn't even explain the journey portion of this game, where you can put your disc on the journey track too if you do 2 movements. There's so much. So if you are not into heavy worker placement games, well, this isn't completely, I wouldn't put this completely in the category of worker placement, but if you're not into really heavy games, this game is definitely not for you. However, I think if you're into medium heavy games, this game might be worth it to go into because of just how much fun it is, especially if you like the theme and you love the art. This is probably definitely going to be worth it, but this is a heavy game. There's going to be an investment in here, not only for you purchasing the game and teaching it, very heavy investment in teaching it just to make sure everyone knows it, because there's a lot of little different things that can really affect your gameplay and strategy in the game and your effectiveness to get those veneration points by the end of the game, but also as the player of absorbing all of this. That's why I really highly suggest that if you're really interested in playing Feudum and you really want to play it, you play that first game and just teach the first game. So you can teach the rules, but as time goes by, just be like, hey, we're just going to do things and we're going to go over those things as we do it. We may even stop halfway through the game or speed it up a little bit so you get a flavor of how those epochs trigger, because each of them have different things that could happen, and do a final scoring so you got a good handle of the game there and you can sort of develop a strategy, and then we'll play a full game after that. That's how I would recommend it. And this game is really rewarding once everyone knows how to play. There is so much depth and strategy in this game. It's insane. So that leads to the replayability, because it really matters a whole lot what your opponents do. Those guilds, letting them control a guild, you should not do that. You should try to mitigate some of the points they're getting, or cause them havoc, or do different things, or try to control your whole guild and get all those points without them noticing. But you have to be able to pivot in this game. You have to be able to think on your feet. You have to know the game to figure out the different ways that you can sort of rake in points and maybe feint in one location, but really rake in the points here. That's where this game really gets going, and why I think so many people love this game is there's just so much in this game that you have so much choice, so many choices and so many valid strategies that you can employ, and you're not stuck to those. You can change your mind halfway through or even on the fly and still make tons of points and still win the game. In fact, it's a highly player interactive game in that aspect, so you will be doing that. I love this game. Okay, I realize it's not for everyone. And I'm not going to say that if you love board games and you're into the medium and lightweight board games that you should jump into. No, probably not. If you really like this and you've never really played like a super heavy game before, I would maybe suggest finding someone that has it and play it, and then make sure you're into that, and then think about purchasing it after that. But if you're into the heavier games, like the heavier Euros and stuff, this is definitely a great game, especially if you love the theme. This game is amazing. Just amazing. I mean, every time it's just something different and new, different avenues you can take. I love this game. I will play it anytime anyone asks. I will let them know ahead of time to make sure they understand what they're getting into. But then I'm going to be super, super happy if they're still into playing this game. I'm going to love it. Just love this game. I can't speak highly enough about Feudum. Wonderful game. I didn't play the solo mode in this. I got the little solo set in here with this. I haven't done that yet, but I'm really looking forward to that. I think that'll be really cool and a lot of fun. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on Feudum. Thank you for watching.